Okay, good morning, First ABC team, followers, and all potential clients. My name is Katie Chen. I'm a mortgage broker with the RTC Mortgage, and today I'm honored to give a short update on mortgage rates and status of mortgage or real estate industry in general. And if you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or put a question in the comments to this post, and we will be able to address that. So just a quick update on the rates. The bottom, the benchmark, like indication of where the rate level is there's 504 fixed rate 5 years promo for primary residence. And still the trend is to the clients prefer and they can qualify better for fixed rates because they're still lower than variable. And 3 years is continuing to be a trend rather than 5 years. So 5 years is a lower rate, but 3 years is preferred because everybody believes that rates will eventually go down, and Bank of Canada will start reducing rates sometime next year or by next year by the year end. So 3 years fixed is right now 579 for primary residence. Rental rates are of course higher, but what I want to emphasize right now, one of the most popular products nowadays in the market is HELOC in the second position, which can be set up with a fixed rate as low as $8.99. So if you're lucky to get HELOC in the first position, if you still can qualify for that, will be around 7.2, which is prime rate right now, or 7.7. As you can see, 8.99 is not a bad rate. If you have equity in your property, that's a very good option, even if you're not planning to consolidate debt or buy investment property in the nearest time. It's still a good option to have access to some credit with a fixed rate in case your situation can change. It's been announced that Bank of Canada potentially will implement another increase in October, and we can see that corporate companies continue layoffs. TELUS announced last week that they will lay off 6,000 people. It's not a very optimistic forecast, and we need to make sure we're all prepared. Still with that, there are a good portion of investment activities are going on in the market, because if you are monitoring real estate or somehow involved, you know that the prices are still climbing in spite of the high rates, and there are still multiple offers in a good portion of segments. So the market is still active. Comparing to last year, we saw how potential buyers were more reluctant to look and search actively, and they were kind of sitting on the fence. This year, we're getting more and more calls. The clients realize that the prices are climbing in spite of the higher rates, but a good portion of them, unfortunately, cannot qualify for what they were intended to buy. So hopefully this will change, and we already know that as soon as rates will go down, the market will burst again. There is no doubt about that. If you have any questions about specific mortgage rates, specific time, or if you are considering to get pre-approval or closing pre-sale, please don't hesitate to give me a call. Also, alternative rates and privates are possible to consider, and qualification terms are more flexible. So Katie Chen, mortgage broker with RTC Mortgage, 778-245-8918. And then thank you to First ABC for giving me the floor time.
Thank you. And what is the private rates nowadays?
Well, the situation with the private rates is that a good portion of private lenders are reluctant to lend on more than 65, occasionally 70%. So they just, because they're concerned with where the value will go. It's still possible to do something around 9 if there is a good portion of equity. Otherwise, if it's up to 80% LTV, you can be closer to 10. And if it's a second mortgage, it can be even close to 12%. So depending on on the circumstances, on how good the credit history is, and what's the exit strategy.
And I also deal with rate on small commercial or big commercial on commercial.
Commercial are a good portion of them are kind of comparable to what residential rates are, but the situation with commercial, if we're talking about own investment property, like depending on where rent is and if it's a multi-unit, for multi-unit rates are because rates are rental income is grandfathered. It probably won't offset mortgage expenses, and that's why lenders go even with the higher down payment right now for multi-units. So if in the past, like a year ago, it was possible to buy multi-unit with a 25%, right now with mortgage rates being higher and rental income is still grandfathered being the same, they typically go with 35, maybe 40% down payment. And then other commercial, all commercial real estate agents, realtors, they say that small, like larger, small size offices, they're not that much in high demand. Individual small offices for individual professionals like dental or aesthetics or accountant, there is still in demand, but like mid-size offices, not that much, and that's why it is harder to put numbers together for that type of property, especially if it's purely investment. If it's owner occupied or owner occupied plus rent, there is a bit of a wiggle room to help that, unless there is higher down payment.
And mid-size offices starting from what size?
Well, I would say 8 people and more, closer to center. Like in general, the general trend downtown, I believe that rent demand is going high, but and listings are going high, but purchase is kind of slowing down a little.
What it would be in terms of square footage?
Sorry, my monitor blinks, and if I hit anything on my keyboard, it just mutes me right away. Sorry, can you say again in terms of square footage?
You say 8 people. You say 8 people. What is in terms of square footage?
It's not a question to me, to be honest, because my bread and butter is residential real estate. So I'm hoping we won't put as much on Instagram, because really commercial is not what I'm chasing actively. I can help with that in case my client needs help too. But I probably shouldn't put my like any word, strong word on that type of sales, but in general, that's what I hear. Those are the trends. The square footage, that would be a more question to realtors.
Yeah, 8 people. It's how many would be? More than 600 square feet anyway, right? Maybe more than 700. William, how are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. Busy,
Can you update us about your idea how the market goes now?
I think, yeah, I just based upon the article from the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. So same story. You may know about the market situation, but my feeling is that the market is still quite strong. So maybe, I don't know until when this trend will continue or last, but I guess maybe by the end of this year, maybe we can just have that strong market situation. And I don't know about the next year, but as of now, as for me, the market looks quite strong. If I talk with other realtors in other brokers companies, they're all quite busy nowadays. So they got more listings, and especially buyer side, less multiple offers, but still if the price is correct, price is very reasonable, they can have a very high chance to get the multiple offer situations. So yeah, the market looks quite strong as of now.
And can you tell us about your house for sale? So everybody's know. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Tomorrow
thank you so
coming.
much. Yeah, but a little bit a tricky thing is that the overall market price, the reasonable market price for there is 1.9 million based off of my CMA report. And seller also agrees about that. Most recently sold prices in the similar size was 1.9 around with less renovation. But the problem is that this house was completely renovated from inside and out, everything.
This house, North Burnaby, yeah.
Yeah, $200,000 premium is justifiable because the house is completely renovated. Because that is very unique, completely renovated.
This weekend open house, right? From 1 to 3, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, we can do open house Saturdays, Sunday, 1 to 3 p.m. And then I can see the more firm result or the more, what can I say, specific result after I finish the open house, right? Yeah.
If you want us to help for open house, let us
I
know.
will. Yeah, okay, yeah. And the good thing is that they did the professional measurement yesterday, and I got the report today. And then according to the professional measurement, the size was increased, especially the basement size, because there was unfinished area in the basement. But after they buy the house, they upgraded. Like I said, they completed the unfinished area. And then the commercial guy who measured the floor plans, the size was, I think 300 square feet was increased in total, which is quite huge. So I discussed this with the seller to this. Yeah, let's double check about that.
Sometimes it's in different browsers, somehow strange, it shows different things or not show something. It's a browser sensitive. Which browser did you use?
I use Chrome.
Chrome, yeah. Maybe Chrome is better, yeah.
And one thing I want to share with you, Natalia, and with other maybe Elvira, realtor, is that the one thing effective 1st of January this year, if the seller sell the house within a year, okay, then the rule changed. So they cannot, even that is the principal resident property, they cannot get the principal residential favor. I'm talking about capital gain tax. Okay, so if you designate one house as your residential main principal resident, and then you don't have to pay the capital gain tax even you sell the house, right? But now the new rule said if you're selling within 1 year, not anymore. So all the income will be turned out to be the business income, not the capital gain income, which means you have to pay 100%, not the 50%. So if you get the capital gain tax, capital gain, only 50% is the taxable income, right? But now if you set it within a year, the whole amount, the gap between the original price and the sold price, become business income. So you have to pay based upon that amount, 100% amount. It's a very scary thing. But this house happened to be selling just after 1 year. So they bought last December. And after they buy the house, they just do all the renovation jobs and finish it by the end of April. And they are selling it again with $101 million premium. Oh my God, the market is crazy. They bought it 1.3. They are selling 2.23.
Good for them, by the way. 1 million for 1 year.
Sorry?
Good for them. 1 million.
So I'm very frustrating. So why do you have to work too hard? I just buy the house and flipping it. Like that.
Where is that, William?
Sorry?
That's not North Burnaby?
North Burnaby.
North Burnaby.
Very good market. So every house was sold within 2 weeks.
Did they renovate the place?
Like I said, this one is completely renovated.
Which people gonna buy starting from January 1st, 2024? they're gonna apply for the rule, or it's just kind of already.
No, I mean, if the house was completed, maybe, let's say January 1st of this year,
Or
the completion,
2023.
yeah, the completion date is the key, right?
Yeah.
So somebody buy and completed the deal January 1st this year, then the new rule applies. The new rule applies. So if the buyer, if the seller, if the owner wants to sell it within this year, I mean, not living within 1 year or rent it out within 1 year. So let's say they bought it January 1st and they just want to sell it now or maybe December. No, okay. I mean, the completion date is a key. So they just want to sell it now. And then the buyer write the offer, and then the offer said the completion date is the end of this year. Then that is within 1 year, right? Then the new applies. So the key is that once the buyer bought the house, they must either living in the house or rent it out minimum 1 year to avoid that new rule.
Wow.
That is what clipping. What's the name of that? Clipping prevention rule or something like that. You can check it out in the Google.
Yeah, because I heard about that rule, but it was like against flip-flop, kind of.
Sorry?
I heard that rule like 1 year ago, that it is against flip-flop. So if it's like less than a year, we should pay like taxes. But I don't remember if it was business income or it was just capital.
Yeah, it is business income. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is on the CRA homepage, I think. Yeah, you can check it out. Yeah.
Oh, it's called again, William? Can you put it in the chat?
I don't know exact name. I cannot remember the name, but later I will check it out and I will let you know.
Okay.
Katie, also, I have a question for the mortgage.
Sure.
Yeah,
Just by the way, guys, I put my contacts in the chat. If you want to exchange yours, Elvira, if you want to exchange contacts. And William, if you want to share your contacts too, I actually might have a potential client for you. He was interested in a realtor who does flips specifically. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, Katie, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so yesterday I was talking to my friends and we were mentioned that what if someone cannot refinance mortgage? What's gonna happen next? Let's say someone bought a property when it was like, 2% interest like rate, and now it's more, so they cannot like how I can say, they cannot reapply for the mortgage. What happened to the property?
So you're probably talking about renewal.
Exactly. Right? Yes, renewal. They cannot.
Maturity comes, and then what happens? So typically, upon renewal, if client wants, and that depends on what type of mortgage they have. Typically, for both A and B side, B is alternative one. Banks do not requalify the client. That's unless they have a good portion in HELOC, because there will be new rules implemented November 1st, but we still don't know the details and how the banks will act on that. So typically upon renewal, nobody, no lender requalifies them. So they just sign renewal documents. Bank typically offers them a rate within the market. They can try to renegotiate, but usually negotiation room is really small. That's unless they want to move and let's say they were with a B site and they want to move to A site, or just go with another lender. If they move it to another lender, then they have to requalify income-wise. But if they just want to renew, nobody will ask them what the income is. A private is different, because private typically they sign a contract again. So typically they don't want to be bound and they want to have some flexibility with the funds and lend them at a higher rate. Sometimes that depends on the lender. Sometimes lender will go ahead and renew. And it's a matter of how much they need to spend on the legal side of things and stuff like that.
Yeah, what happened to my friend, one of them, they couldn't renew the mortgage, so our bank didn't renew with them. So I mean, The bank didn't renew the mortgage with them.
Yeah,
So
but
meaning
it
that-
depends on the bank. What's the bank?
Oh, I don't know that details, but we just were discussing yesterday. Is it foreclosure now is coming for the property, or what's going to be with the apartment?
Well, can they pay? Can they?
No, they cannot pay. No, they cannot pay, and they cannot renew the mortgage. What's going to happen to the property?
So the only reason why bank didn't renew, they probably had missed payments.
Mhm.
Because there is no other way bank would find out that there are issues. The foreclosure process typically takes up to a year. So the bank will notify, they can try, and depending on the situation, what happened with the income and why they couldn't pay. If it's temporary and they're in the process of changing jobs or looking for a job, then they can just try to negotiate with the bank. And they will give them, depending on what's the amortization, what's the type of mortgage, is it insured or not. If there is some room, they can potentially extend amortization and give them, put it on pause for a month or two. If the situation is really critical and there is no option to pay, then bank will first notify them, then they will hand it over to, but they will basically open a process, foreclosure process with the court, and that also takes some time, so from 6 months to a year until the actual hearing happens. Still within that period of time, if they manage to find a job and qualify for a new mortgage, it's possible to just stop the foreclosure process.
Yeah, because yesterday I was hearing that story that's actually happened to people that they couldn't renew the mortgage, and we were just thinking how it's going to be. Is it foreclosure, or should they sell right away by themselves, to cover?
Well, I would ask first what happened, right? What's the reason why bank did not renew? Because from my experience, bank doesn't even ask if the client pays. That's all they care about. If you can pay, it's fine with them. So there probably were some missed mortgage payments. That's probably the only reason. Sometimes I see that in case of divorces. So one of the partners or spouses just gets a little panicky and stir the pot, and they refuse to sign on one side. And then, but even in this case, if mortgage payments are going through, the bank would convert it into an open mortgage. So that's not, I mean, that should be not a problem. So probably the issue is that there are missed payments.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna.
But one payment for year they can ask to skip, right?
It depends on what mortgage type and how much amortization they have, and on the bank, right? If it's insured mortgage, it's a little more different to skip, I think. But typically, if there is amortization, bank will be flexible.
Okay, thank you so much.
But that's a good question, because typically clients are kind of shy to ask or intimidated to ask what's happened, what's going to happen, and what are the options. So I would say just really consider what are income opportunities are for them, and then if they can improve, then they can hold for some time. If not, but that's another thing, is if you sell, because those are discussions I have with clients occasionally. They're like, well, okay, because I see some good portion of self-employed clients and even realtors right now considering to switch to full-time job. And then when we talk about income, like self-employed, if they switch to full-time, I ask, would you consider selling? And they say, rent are so high, like, what's the difference? If you sell, where do you go, right? Like, you would have to move out of town.
Yep.
So from a mortgage point of view, if this kind of client put many students in a house and they are temporary, it's difficult to qualify, yeah?
When we qualify, here's another thing. There have been new requirements released by I believe that's National Board of Appraisers, or whoever is the regulator for appraisers, because there have been several legal cases where rent didn't prove the amount they qualified for was not proved, and a client failed, like the borrower failed. So those were situations when the unit actually was not there, because in the past they were assessing rent basis the documents available in their database or for whatever client declared. But for actual full-time appraisal, they go there physically. For desktop rent, they don't. And now their regulator came back and requested that they would appraise only basis the amount of units officially registered. So in the past, 2 levels, 2 entrances, they could appraise separately, and amount would be higher, right? Now they could only appraise wherever is legally registered. If suite is not registered, they will appraise entire house. And they cannot appraise room by room, and they cannot appraise basis Airbnb. So when we qualify, if client has records that they are charging roommates and they have deposits proof, we can take that income. But if they don't, if they say, well, I'm just starting renting and I will rent a room by room furnished, then no. And that's what I said. Quite like I had several files when my clients already renting in different areas, Chilliwack and both Broadway area, like more towards Kitsilano. And they have long-term history and they reported taxes on that. And in this case, we were able to claim higher number. And of course, numbers are higher, like furnished and on top of it, roommates, of course. But I know it's a hassle to handle. And officially, I believe it's not even a tenancy agreement in this case, right? If it's roommates.
It could be roommates agreements. Some always do, even like an official one, and same rules, depends on habits. Of course, they have to declare them, all income. And how about unauthorized units? Are they not even considered, or they are considered?
It will be a challenge to put a separate rent on it. So if it's, let's say, primary residence where in the past, I would consider that as additional income, then we won't be able to add separate suite. But if it's like rental property, then we would consider whatever is a full house rental adds.
So if basement unauthorized, it's not considering because they cannot. Okay, super. Yeah, thank you so much.
Sometimes clients can provide lease and certain lenders will accept that, but appraisers cannot anymore.
For the purpose.
And you said that it should be long-term rental, right? For how many months? Like, for example, if someone wants to renew the mortgage, and I will give advice to rent, for example, basement, how many months it's considering, like bank will consider as a rent helper? Like 3 months, 6 months, how many months it should be?
So there are about 100 lenders, and each of them have different programs. Like some lenders have both A side, which is regulated by federal programs, and others have alternative, like kind of both in their portfolio. And those alternative programs are a little bit more flexible. And that all comes down on what type of documents they ask as a proof. Like, for example, TD will always ask that rental income is claimed on the taxes in order to consider that. Other banks are flexible. They can be even more flexible on the B side. So it's hard to say. It's like the same as someone would come in Vancouver and say, recommend me what's the best area to buy, right? Like you talk to a client who is new to Vancouver, and they will say, what's the best area to live in, right? So kind of the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, what, for example, if I rent my place, like start to rent it out since February, and now it's December, and I need to renew my mortgage. I don't have it filed yet in my tax return. How would they still consider it as a mortgage helper?
Well, I
based
would
on-
say at least have deposits and a lease agreement, and I'm sure property manager would recommend you to have at least lease agreement so tenant doesn't take advantage of you, not even mortgage from mortgage perspective, because
Yes.
tenants can pull you inside out in the city. So
and for
at
example-
least deposit proof and a lease agreement.
Yeah, for how many months?
I would say 3 at least.
3 at least.
Usually they ask 3
Mhm.
or at least some. Like if there is an agreement and deposit and first months, that probably would be a good call.
Mhm.
And that's again, if a rent level is reasonable, like if it's close to average market level or whatever appraiser would determine, that even a lease agreement is enough. But if property could be rented for 8,000, but client brings lease agreement for 15 and no deposits, they of course will say we need second opinion and get it appraised. So
Okay.
it's like they have experience, right? They are so sharp. They look at the documents and sometimes they see what 10 brokers won't see altogether because they are specifically trained for those things. So they know what average person makes in the industry, what average rent is. They have their database, things like that. So.
And do you have such idea or such summary what they consider reasonable rents on areas now?
Well, it would be more a call to appraisers, actually. I'm always wondering, like I can tell you how appraisers they take area and they take a rough amount per room. So like Port Coquitlam, 700 per room, something like this. And then bank is not appraising per se, right? Because rents are also changing, but from their experience, it should be like a good call. So from their experience, what they see in the area, in their previous file, on the file next to it, they can kind of tell. I don't know if they have how they file their internal database. So is it like lender by lender, underwriter by underwriter? What's their experience? Appraisers are more aware of that. So they have like their sense, even not looking at the property, they were like, okay, North Vancouver per room, how much? Or basements, meter condo, stuff like that.
Okay, Kathy, I have one question regarding you already answered about the situation, but so if the house has an unauthorized suite on the basement, and then 2 cases, one, if the buyer want to buy it as investment purposes, so he want to rent it out the whole house, maybe basement and the main floor, maybe with the 1 tenant or 2 tenants, something like that. So in that situation, that is okay to get the mortgage approval as a income generating.
There's no such restrictions that banks change their rental programs. It's only a matter of how much we can claim as rental income.
Yeah, but
if entire house, just like I said in the past, if there are 2 levels in their kitchen in the basement and kitchen upstairs, we could take 2 separate units and then the amount will be higher. Right now, if basement is not legal, but there is still a kitchen or it can be rented, the appraiser will take entire house. Okay. They will calculate rent for entire house, which will slightly smaller than if there were 2 separate levels. Or alternatively, a client can try to show a lease agreement and without deposits, see what bank says. If it's a reasonable amount, they can try. Or some banks accept documents from the seller if it's already tenanted and seller who has good records, because that can be a selling point sometimes, right? If a realtor can convince like seller has a good records of rental income, and it's not grandfathered, it's in line with the market, then some of the banks can consider seller's documents.
But how about owner live on the main floor and only rent out the basement, which is unauthorized situation?
If it's primary residence, but mortgage helper?
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna be tough if it's
That's
not.
tough. Okay.
Yeah, most probably appraiser will be able to will say if it's not a legal suite, we cannot.
Okay, got it.
appraise.
Yeah,
So-
that. Yeah, you mentioned about that. I just wanna recap what you said. Okay.
Or what they are trying to say to do right now, like regulator tells them you need to visit the place, because in the past it was purely desk assessment. But
Mhm.
now they require them to visit the property and actually make sure that there is everything the borrower claims, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes it's just, oh yeah, the entrance is there, but there's nothing, or there's crawl space or stuff like that. So maybe if they will push it enough with the actual visit, with the actual appraisal,
Mm.
situation might change, because we had a situations in the past when it was challenged, right? And it will, like, for example, non-resident buying restrictions. Eventually they said not to working visa, but then they implemented some changes to that. So potentially it may change too, because I mean, how can you qualify for mortgage? Banks have their own appetite, right? Like one thing what appraiser says, another thing is what documents bank will accept. So
Thank you.
Mhm. Thank you so much. And we can exchange all info, and if somebody missed, we can also send everything. If you send everything to my email, I will make sure to send to everyone around, right? Mhm.
okay, sounds good.
this.
I downloaded the chat. You can save the chat. So that's still fine
Mhm.
with me. I don't need to, but if you,
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Something I don't know yet, how you save the chat.
if you see the like 3 dots at the very bottom
Oh,
Very
save
bottom.
chat.
in the chat,
I didn't know that. Yeah. Okay. Save
I
chat.
didn't know, yeah.
you can
Very
click on
bottom.
it
Very
and then
bottom.
you can open it right away in the folder.
Yeah.
I don't see any dots. Ah, yeah, I see.
Chat,
I
chat
see it,
Yeah, and
in
then
the chat itself.
yeah,
chat.
and
And there are dots at the very bottom. So if you want to type the message, and at the bottom you have options. Format, screenshot, file, or smiley, and then 3 dots.
okay, the smiley. This one is, what is that? First one?
Save chat.
Save chat. It
Yeah,
said
save
save
chat.
chat.
Save chat. Oh, for some reason I didn't see it. It's
Save.
from first one or from dots?
So that's in the chat itself. There are dots in the window below where you have stop video and mute. So that's the one. If you go in the actual chat and you try to type a message at the bottom.
Okay,
So
test.
where the typing area is, and right underneath, like you just typed. If you go,
Oh, I see.
You got it?
Clear. Maybe you send me screenshot where it is would be. How to do it. Okay, I will figure it out.
Natalia,
Now
I will teach you because I understand where is that. I'll show you.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'll just put a print screen.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think we are one hour, so it's good. It was good discussion today.
It was
Yeah,
nice
it was
meeting
very-
everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Nice
was
meeting
very
you.
helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Thank you,
important.
guys. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for your updates too. It's always very helpful. Thank you.
Great.
Enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, you too, Kathy.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Oh, they're gone. Okay, everyone, have a great day.